Hello and welcome to TVP World News. It's 12 o'clock local time in Warsaw. I'm Diana Skaya. Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko pardoned 15 prisoners on Friday. The action comes just 2 days before a presidential election in the country, which is widely seen as a sham, with the foregone conclusion of him extending his 31-year rule. Now, Belarusian state media reported that Lukashenko pardoned 8 people convicted of extremist activity and 7 sentenced for drug crimes. No names have been made public. According to estimates by human rights activists, at least 1,254 political prisoners remain behind bars in Belarus. It's too early to talk about exact numbers, said the spokesperson of Ukraine's foreign ministry about the possibility of foreign troops being stationed in Ukraine as part of a potential peace deal with Russia. Now, these comments follow Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's statement earlier this week that at least 200,000 European peacekeepers could be part of such a security guarantee.
Yes, the discussion is ongoing about the contingents, the military contingents of foreign powers, foreign nations that can be potentially deployed to Ukraine. This discussion is in its very early stages, and right now we see the media discussion about the numbers, the exact numbers, but in fact, in real negotiations and talks, it's too early to talk about exact numbers. From Ukraine's point of view, foreign military contingents can be a part of security guarantees for Ukraine, but not the only part, not the only element. This can be an element in the system of security guarantees for Ukraine, and the aim of those guarantees should be one and main aim is to prevent Russia from attacking Ukraine again.
Speaking at a press conference in Davos about the upcoming talks between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski warned the U.S. president that the Russian leader has changed since Trump dealt with him during his first term.
There are politicians who believe in personal diplomacy, and sometimes it brings results. However, the classic diplomatic art is different. First, the lower levels discuss and establish the details of the agreement, and then the leaders ratify the agreements made at lower levels. Both approaches are justified. I would just like to warn President Trump that this Putin is different than the one he dealt with during his first term of office. This Putin started a full-scale war in Europe and is guilty of war crimes.
According to Alternative for Germany party leader Alice Weidel, the recent knife murders and terrorist acts are proof of the breakdown of internal security in Germany. Now, in an open letter, Weidel called on Christian Democratic Union leader Friedrich Merz to let her party take necessary decisions on the issue without further delay.
Dear Mr. Merz, the recent knife murders and terrorist acts in Mannheim, Solingen, Magdeburg, and most recently Aschaffenburg have clearly demonstrated the breakdown of internal security in our country as a result of the almost decade-long reign of injustice in German migration policy. As a state political responsibility, I therefore appeal to you. Let us take the necessary decisions without further delay in order to put into practice what the citizens now rightly expect from politicians. The coming week of sessions in the German Bundestag offers an opportunity for this that must not be wasted.
2 watchdog companies identified a group of Russian-affiliated websites spreading propaganda abroad. Now, the alleged group was attempting to influence the results of the upcoming parliamentary elections in Germany. Now, according to analysis by NewsGuard and Corrective, some 102 websites are connected to John Mark Duggan. Now, the outlets published content supportive of politicians and parties friendly towards Russia, like the far-right Alternative for Germany. The former American policeman who received political asylum in Russia fled the United States after similar campaigns against American politicians. Now, in response, the German Ministry of Foreign Affairs said it's surveying the campaign, which in their eyes is aimed at undermining confidence in German public institutions. Upwards of 500 illegal migrants have been detained in the United States, the spokesperson for the White House, Carolyn Leavitt, has announced. Now, she added that many of them have already been deported. The largest massive deportation operation in history is well underway, the spokesperson wrote on platform X. Now, a total of 538 illegal migrants have been arrested, who, according to Levit, include a suspected terrorist, 4 members of the Tren de Aragua gang, and several illegals convicted of sex crimes against minors. On Wednesday, the U.S. Congress approved the so-called Riley Act, named after a nursing student who was murdered by a Venezuelan man last year. The bill, which now awaits Trump's signature, provides a requirement of detention of undocumented immigrants who are charged with certain criminal offenses, including shoplifting, assault, or any crime causing any bodily harm. Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski held a phone call with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio on Thursday. The official spoke about pressing issues in geopolitics as well as Poland-U.S. relations.
My conversation with the new U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio showed that the Polish-American friendship has strong foundations. Marco, there are many challenges ahead of us, but the alliance of Poland, Europe and the United States will cope with them.
U.S. President Donald Trump has ordered the release of classified government files related to the assassination of former U.S. President John F. Kennedy, Senator Robert Kennedy, and Reverend Martin Luther King Jr.
Lastly, sir, we have an executive order ordering the declassification of files relating to the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
That's a big one, huh? A lot of people are waiting for this for years, for decades. And everything will be revealed. Okay? Give that to RFK Jr.
Yes, sir.
Moving on to the Middle East, 4 hostages held by Hamas will be released on Saturday, both Palestinian and Hebrew media report. Now, the move comes as part of the second exchange of hostages for Palestinian security prisoners as part of the ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. Now, on Friday, Hamas is slated to reveal the names of 4 hostages who are expected to be female civilians and soldiers. Their release will be part of an exchange by means of which a couple dozen Palestinian prisoners will be freed as well. Now, the ceasefire agreement was struck on January 15, and 4 days later, its first stage took effect, resulting in the first swap between Hamas and Israel. Now, by ways of this first exchange, Hamas released 3 hostages in return for 90 Palestinian women and teenagers. Romania's pro-Russian presidential candidate, Călin Georgescu, has been endorsed by the second largest opposition group in parliament, the Alliance for the Union of Romanians, or AUR. The party decided to rescind the candidacy of its leader, George Simion, who also stood for president in the annulled election in late November. Now, the decision comes despite major differences between the 2 far-right politicians, including views on NATO bases in Romania, which Georgescu opposes. Now, the leadership of the AUR party, however, has stated that this decision aims to respect the will of the Romanian people. Georgescu won the first round of the now invalidated presidential election and was geared to square up against center-right candidate Elena Lasconi in the runoff, despite neither being tipped to enter the second round. But the ballot results were widely contested over allegations of Russian interference in favor of Georgescu, which eventually led to the country's constitutional court annulling the election. Friday marks the 5th and final day of the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. Now, leaders from around the globe will convene to discuss pressing topics in geopolitics, economy, and security. Now, relations between the United States, the European Union, and China will be at the top of the agenda on the last day of the World Economic Forum. Global figures in politics, business, and civil society will also touch on the subject of the challenges facing the global economy. They'll also discuss possible ways to deal with the fall in agricultural productivity, polluted waterways, and the increased frequency of droughts. The European Union abandoned plans to hold a meeting on defense policy in the Belgian countryside. Instead, the event will be held at a conference center in Brussels. Now, the European Council said the change was made after updated security evaluation of the Château de Limont country house near Liège. European officials decided to move the event to the Egmont Palace in the Belgian capital. The meeting is scheduled for February 3rd. Union workers from the Serbian state-owned electricity company took to the streets of Belgrade on Thursday evening. The workers joined students in the Serbian capital in ongoing protests sparked by a roof collapse that killed 15 people. More disruptions are on the horizon as a general strike is expected to begin today. Now, workers and students gathered in front of the Serbian electrical company headquarters in Belgrade. There, they observed 15 minutes of silence to honor those killed in the railway station roof collapse last November. The protests also prompted action from the U.S. Embassy in Belgrade. American officials cautioned U.S. citizens to remain vigilant and leave immediately if they see any disorderly crowds. A fierce storm enveloping Ireland and the UK has caused the cancellation of flights and school closures. Authorities have issued several weather warnings. The storm, called Eowyn, has triggered power outages that have affected more than 500,000 people in Ireland. Irish citizens have been advised against any non-essential travel due to damaged electrical infrastructure, blocked roads, and suspended public transport and flights. Now in the UK, gale force winds and heavy rain forecasts put emergency services on high alert amid threats of property damage and travel disruptions. And that's all for this edition of TVP World News. I'm Diana Skaya. Thanks for watching.